fun to watch. David King, welcome to the round 2 means test.
Fun to watch. Gerard, if you could pick a club to play for, every player in the land's picking Collingwood. They're all expressing themselves. They're all having a great time in a positive environment. It's full club. Everyone knows. Everyone's got a role to play in this, on and off field. I just reckon their football club at the moment is just flying on all fronts. It's just great to watch. And yeah, I did warn you this was coming.
Yeah. We're going to delve a little deeper in a moment in the best bits. The means test is for Jamison. Win a Jamison Sharon match ball through your local bottle shop today. But would you like to have a footy ops meeting Monday morning? Shall we have a mock AFL footy ops meeting?
Who is actually doing the footy ops at the moment?
Andrew Dillon and Laura Kane are running the portfolio.
Okay.
So there's plenty in attendance.
Okay.
I think our 2 will be enough.
I'll tell you what, if you can get them in here, Gerard, one Monday morning.
Nah, I'm happy for you and I to do it. Give me a King's Gambit to start the means test.
Well, just having a look, there's so much has changed in 2 weeks of footy from what we saw last year on all fronts. And I think the major front are the individual leaders at your club. So if you can just think, okay, who won our best and fairest last year? Simple as that, really basic stuff. I think there's been a change in the rankings internally for each club in 2 weeks, with the exception of, I still think Jeremy Cameron is Geelong's best player, and I still think Jack Sinclair is St Kilda's best player, both reigning best and fairest winners. And I know Guthrie was a split with Cameron, so make of that what you will. But at Adelaide, it was Rory Laird. I don't know if it's still Rory Laird. The amount of occasion, it's not really identifiable right now who their best is. Lockie Neal in Brisbane, I think Dunkley's having a better year than him. Maybe even Bailey you could talk about. He's still going okay, Lockie, but he's not absolutely number one. Paddy Cripps, well, I think Charlie Curnow has overtaken him, and you can mount a case for Wiedering. Cripps at Collingwood's having a pretty good start to the year, but the Daicos boys and even Pendlebury are all the rage. Essendon's Peter Wright, injured. Parrish, Shield, Merritt, take your pick. Fremantle, well, this is a good discussion, Fremantle. Brayshaw was last year's best and fairest winner, not now. No, I think Luke Ryan might even be winning their best and fairest. Gold Coast, Tuke Miller, Rowell and Anderson. At GWS, Taylor was their last one. Green's back in great form. Canelio's back in great form. Sicily at the Hawks, maybe a chance. He may be in the running. Warple's having a pretty good start. Newcomb's had a very good start. Oliver at Melbourne, I think if Pickett played second week, he'd probably leading their best and fairest. Lever's had a great start. I'm not sure it's absolutely Clayton Oliver. Max, until he was obviously injured, he's having a good start to the year. LDU's gone past Simpkin at the Kangas. I think Dixon's having a better start to the year than Rosie. Rioli, Hopper, Tim Taranto probably having a better start to the year than Tom Lynch. But you can mount a case for Tom, I think. At Sydney, it was Mills last year. He's still in the mix, but Goulden and Warner have probably challenging him at the moment. West Coast was Barras. Tim Kelly's back in great form. Jermaine Jones is having a good start to the year. Ryan and Cripps and those guys. The Western Bulldogs, it was Dunkley and Libba last year. Libba was second. I think maybe Ed Richards has gone past them. I think he'd be leading their best and fairest, but it's not identifiable. It's not absolutely Marcus Bontempelli. It's not absolutely Tom Liberatore. It's not Jackson McRae. So the ones where you're not sure, it's why they're where they are.
Yep.
Fremantle, Adelaide, Western Bulldogs. So I think there's a shift, and it may straighten up in the next 4 to 6 weeks when it gets a little bit tougher for those younger bodies. But I think it's refreshing. So at your own club, in your own mind, have a think, who started the year on fire? Because generally, if you have a first 2 weeks of brilliance, you can carry it for 4, and then it just becomes the snowball effect. And all of a sudden, you have a Jermaine Jones run, have a great season for you. So it's all just a talking point at this stage. But even your top 5 in the comp right now, Gerard, who would you have as your top 5 players? I mean, Jeremy Cameron for me is still at the top of the tree. But those underneath, the 4 or 5 names, I would never have had Luke Davies-Uniacke in the top 5 in the competition. I wouldn't have had Nick Daicos in the top. They were my 2 and 3 last night. So I don't know what your thoughts are, or those are the temper texters, but Mason Wood's coming through. I fancy saying Mason Wood would be in St Kilda's a discussion for the best player after 2 weeks. So I just think there's so much change. Let's just embrace it and run with it and be excited by it.
Yes, where the game is going to take us in young hands. Like we've seen Will Ashcroft in his second game and then marry that up with Nick Daicos the next day and then Luke Davies-Uniacke. So all slightly different ages of experience, but these are the players that are going to inherit the earth, and it's going to be in good hands.
No, it's not a given anymore that it's just Dangerfield, Martin. You know, we've probably turned the page on that a little bit. I think it's great. It's great for the comp.
The capacity to renew. So let's do the best bits at the start. Sort of there's a macro and a micro, and you love the micro. We'll get to Winston Abraham in a moment, who's long-term been your favourite. So what do you want to say about Collingwood after 2 rounds?
Well, we put this on the radar a couple of weeks ago, modern-day Malcolm, and I always come back to, if you're going to win the flag, you've got to win at the MCG. And I think the Pies have won 12 of their last 13. Something like it. It's simple to see why you can fall in love with Collingwood with the way they play, but the way they play this venue is a stripe on the shoulder you need to have, and it's difficult for the interstaters that are at the pointy end of the comp, like Brisbane only play there a handful of times through the year, and Sydney don't get many opportunities at the G. Port Adelaide don't get many opportunities and didn't play that well on the weekend. So to come there and to play well is a big tick, and obviously Collingwood get a lot of opportunities at the MCG, but they're winning those opportunities. So I think it's one of those silent sort of assets that you need to have. But if you just want to talk about what Collingwood are doing, it's absolute power. It's scoring power. It's brute force. So we talk about the game's a turnover game. Both teams make 70 mistakes a game. And it's not just necessarily kick it to centre half forward and you lose it there. It's fumbling the ball. It's not being clean. It's being stripped of the ball. It's being caught holding the ball. It's loose balls. It's all those sorts of things when the game's in dispute. So if you win the ball back on turnover, how effective are you at getting that on the scoreboard? How can you punish? So it's about the power of your ability to punish. Now, the AFL average is 70 points per 100 turnovers, right? And you normally go at about 50 points per game, right? So to go at 71 points per 100 is the AFL average. The Pies are going at 123 points per 100. Like that is number one by a long way. And you can't hold that for the year. But they've done it against Geelong and Port Adelaide, who we all think are 2 very good sides. So I just think you have to sit back and say, this is so powerful and so positive and so proactive a way of playing. I'm just not sure how you take it on. I'm not sure whether the Ross Lyon version of slow the game down, gum it up, down, back, don't let them score, don't let them score, don't let them score is going to be any good. Or let's go at them 100 miles an hour, which we thought was going to happen on the weekend, and that blew up. So I don't know what the anti-venom is, Gerard, for this method. It could be because it's so powerful.
Well, it was goal for goal early, and then it was over by quarter time. So they traded jabs, and then Collingwood hit them with an uppercut, a roundhouse, and she was over. It was a gross mismatch by the end. So I don't think many teams will be able to absorb what Collingwood brings, and that actually narrows down your premiership chances just as a simple measure. So who's going to be able to absorb it?
Yeah. So we rave about seeing something new because you don't often see new in footy. You see the same stuff, probably a different way. This is new. So when you do something new and it works, you're going to win it. Because if you don't, everyone adopts your new the next pre-season.
Yes, yeah.
So you got to win it when you're very good.
Yep. So they've won 12 of 13 at the MCG is what 12, that count is up to. And the Nick Daicos side of the equation. So I think it's entirely likely he has 6 Brownlow votes.
Oh.
But more than that, it is put the ball in his hand. So Ken Hinkley did what everyone told him to do. He put the tag on. There's a curiosity in the player that he chose as the tag, but it was over by quarter time, just like the game.
I think Nick won. I do. I think he was pretty good. So, yeah, we went with him a little bit early. He's such a creative player and he's such a powerful runner. Everyone in the competition knows that. The challenge is to be able to put the clamps on him when they've got control like they did today. The difference will be what's the control look like if it's a 50-50 game as it going both ways. Now, Nick's short career would suggest he handles most of it. So I don't need to spend too much time on Nick other than the fact that he got us bad today.
He got us bad today.
Yeah, look.
So you think this is in what they got wrong?
Oh, 100% they got this wrong. I mean, it's a little bit arrogant, right? Just come back to the mindset of this, right? This is This is classic Port Adelaide. This is absolutely the Port Adelaide mindset. We'll get Nick Daicos done. Like, if you haven't seen Nick Daicos, right, he is running rampant. He has done all pre-season. He has done all off-season. You got him round 2. They would have scouted Collingwood for 6 weeks because there's nothing else to see, right, during the February and early March. To think you can kick goals off Nick Daicos with a half-forward flanker and tag him at the same time, I think is lunacy. So all it did was put a young player who I don't think's ever tagged in his life, right, pitting against probably a top 3 player in the comp right now, and say, okay, we want you to work off him when we have the ball. Well, Nick doesn't even pick you up. He knows that someone else will sort you out. I'm just going to go and stand next to another player, and then what are you going to do? Then you've got a decision to make. This is why tagging is so difficult, because he goes and stands next to Connor Rosey, and then Joe goes, hang on, mate, we've got the ball. Do I stay with Nick or do I go and try and crumb the ball in the forward 50? And he's part of the Bash brothers. So he didn't even get to bash in the forward half. So he lost his game totally. He didn't have any idea whether he was staying with him or working off him. And Nick said, this is perfect because every time Port get the ball, you run away from me 10 metres, not far enough to get the footy. And then when we win it back, my teammates give me the footy because I'm the best kick in the team. So I thought it was crazy to go with a half-forward flanker that's never done it before and give him instructions that even an experienced 300-gamer wouldn't be able to complete.
Big issue is the Dogs' dismal start. This is a team that, by its own aspiration, is heading towards the top 4, desires to live there, have had 2 really unsettling weeks. And to listen to Luke Beveridge in the aftermath is to know that every question is on the table right now, from preparation to execution, from conditioning to strategy, from player movement to even the coach's contract. It's all there. It's been a really unsettling start for the Dogs, Kingy.
Yeah, alarming, really. I'm a believer in Luke Beveridge, so let's just make that the starting point, okay? Maybe you start making excuses for those you trust. Maybe it's the subconscious working against the numbers. So on the weekend, they just didn't get it inside 50. They couldn't move the ball. They couldn't win critical contests. They couldn't perform as a midfield like we've known they have. Now, I don't know whether that's because there's no Dunkley and no Hunter, and they've lost 2 prime pieces out of that core, and they thought they could replace them with flanker types, come in and play those roles. Now, Dunkley's role was a significant role. The best and fairest winner last year. So maybe that was naive of them to think that they could just fulfil that or ask for a bit more from Bontempelli and a bit more from McRae, who's out of form. Jackson McRae's been a 35 disposal getter forever, and he's not that player at the moment. They can't move the ball. So they've moved some of those flankers in, and now they can't move the ball. So a Caleb Daniel, for instance, has been a halfback of note the last few years. So he's been asked to do different roles. And it hasn't worked. So all of a sudden their strength area, which was the midfield, now dissipated. And where they thought they'd find is in terms of winning the ball back and on intercept, because now they got Jones and we're a bit taller down back and we're going to use Bruce and we're going to do this. It hasn't worked. It hasn't helped them counterpunch and score. So they've won the ball back, but they haven't won it back enough or with enough punish on the end of it. So they've got 2 issues. The midfield are neither winning enough ball, providing enough quality, nor getting the ball in the spread and helping getting their ball movement going. So they are in trouble with that. Now, I don't know how much trouble, but they're relying on too few in there now. And I think Luke Beveridge is saying, hey, okay, we're in a bit of strife here. So this is where I come back to Treloar. He's the wild card. Now, I don't know if north of 30, he can still be that breakaway midfielder, because there's been times over the last couple of years where he's been on the flanks, be back or be forward, and not, when healthy, a prime midfielder. So I think a lot revolves around Adam, his health and fitness, and what he can actually do. Like, this is the discussion we had a few weeks ago with Ryan Pappenhausen from the Storm. It's okay to come back from injury, but when you're back and performing, when you're back and at 9 out of 10 performance levels, not just out there as a magnet and going at 5 or 6 out of 10. So now it really comes back to Marcus Bontempelli. And we say, okay, we've seen Lachie Neale do this at Brisbane for the last couple of years, carry a midfield. We've seen Nathan Fyfe do it at Fremantle. We've seen Patrick Dangerfield. We've seen the greats do it. We all think he's a great. But now's probably his biggest challenge. To actually say, okay, I have to go in and be the absolute man for this midfield to give these youngsters around me an opportunity to play lesser roles because that's all they're capable of at the moment. They're not waiting on too much to come back into that midfield. That this is it, with the exception of I just spoke about Trelaw. So if it's going to work, it has to be Bontempelli. It's not about Sam Darcy. It's not about Jamara. It's not. It's about the guys getting the game going in the middle and then getting it somewhere near Aaron Norton and hoping these other blokes can get involved. Because right now they are asset poor, where they once were asset rich in the midfield.
And it has to be right now. Their next 4 games, the Lions on a 5-day break, Richmond, Port Adelaide in Adelaide and Freo in Perth. Now, exactly what the quality of some of those teams are is not fully revealed, but they'll be shot by round 6 if they don't straighten it up now. They'll just be too far back, and you know what it's like for a team to chase its tail right throughout the season. You spend your whole time chasing your tail.
Yeah.
You have surges and fits where everything's right, but you never make up the ground. So it's now, the next 4 weeks for them. And that's a really bad spot to get to after 2 rounds when you are planning to be a top 4 team.
So without being disrespectful, it's okay to lose to Melbourne. A lot of teams are going to lose to Melbourne, right?
I think that's a bad matchup for the Dogs, and we've got enough evidence of that.
And that's okay. That's okay to have exposed flaws against the very best. And then they've had opportunities where they've dominated Melbourne in game over the last few years, but haven't necessarily got the chocolates. But when you then lose to St Kilda, and full credit to St Kilda, nothing disrespectful here.
No, and we'll get to St Kilda's shortly.
But they ain't a top 4 team.
Yep.
Right? So when you've now dropped 2 games and started to think, okay, where are we sitting here? And you don't have to have an answer for us today, but then when you're coming up against Brisbane, like you say, oh, hang on, this is getting pretty sticky. 0-2 over the last decade has seen 16% of teams make the 8 at 0-2. At 0-3, my God, the numbers just don't make for good reading. So they know the urgency, and in my opinion, there's only at the Dogs. There's probably 3 guys that can turn this around. Aaron Norton can go crazy, and he's throwing himself at everything.
Yeah.
I love the way he plays. Love it. And Marcus Bontempelli's another, and I think their next most important player is Tom Liberatore. Just winning so much footy that you just can't not score. So to me, it's on those guys. But the number one, and this is why he's a great, is Marcus Bontempelli. Over to you.
Ground cover intensity and speed, we haven't been up to the level. I think there are some similarities we didn't see coming. So Beveridge used the word unexpectedly, and we didn't see coming. So it's an uncomfortable stage for the Bulldogs to sort out on a short break.
So I want you to watch. Let's watch Marcus Bontempelli and just watch Marcus for this week, and let's see if he's covering the ground and if his intensity and leadership is at its absolute best. Because this is when it gets hard, when you can't see the forest for the trees.
The decision to re-sign Beveridge in the off-season, and I think Kane's been really thoughtful about this. This is the contract space I think he's really interesting to listen to. So park whether it should or shouldn't have, right? But the fact that it's been done gives Beveridge the stability to do the job. So he's under pressure to do the job. If they hadn't re-signed him, we know what this looks like. From this day forth, that football club would be enveloped in is the coach going to survive? And every loss carries. Now, there are those who would want that scenario, who want the intensity of that. But if they are right, then this is why you extend a contract, to guard against 0-2 blowing up your whole season, because I think this would be turmoil that would be difficult to get out of the clutches of.
See, the AFL hates you sacking coaches in contract because there's payouts involved. I think it's the only way to finish a coach is with a payout involved, because you basically tell your whole football club, the fan base, the players, everyone that we're not sure this is our man, so we're not going to re-sign. We're actually not sure. So let's see how you go this year. And everyone says, hang on, if they're not sure, why are we listening to this bloke? You don't have the absolute 100% buy-in of everyone, and that's what you need to compete at AFL footy. So you have to re-sign them. Even if you've got 30% doubt in your mind, we're in. Let's re-sign him. And if we have to pay him out, we have to pay him out. That's just the cycle of football. If you hang around and wait until they're out of contract and then sack them, so this is the Port Adelaide discussion, right? I'd rather give Ken an extra year and say, take it off the table, right? Take it off the table. He's our man. We've got 100% confidence in him. And if he's not, you sack him and you pay him his 3 months or his 6 months. That's the cycle. But as soon as you say, no, we're not sure. No, we're going to wait. The conversation starts and it never stops.
And it becomes self-defeating within the setup. We've seen that.
100%.
It is so hard to get out of, and we've lived through it in recent times with Leon Cameron at the Giants and Nathan Buckley at Collingwood, as they never had a hope in those seasons once the early season losses came.
Koshi has invited the termites in, right? And they may not chew through the whole foundation of the joint month one, but at 2 and 3, do they start eating in? Do they start eroding everything you've built? It's a horrible position for a coach to be in, that you haven't got the trust of the back office, but you're trying to keep it with the players. They're not stupid, Gerard.
Yep.
This is why winning premierships are full club things. And they worry about the finances. The finances will be no good if your club's going ordinary and you've told everyone you're not sure about the coach. So I don't understand that. That's why I don't mind re-signing coaches, because you know what? The best way to exit them is with a cheque in their hand. You've given them every opportunity.
The debate. So every Monday morning at the AFL, the Footy Ops team comes together and they assess the incidents of the weekend.
You love this.
I love this. And it's a sort of a tight run thing. Do you start with the lights going out at the Gabba? Do you start with the heartbeat finish in Perth, the siren and the ball and the umps on duty? Or do you start with the disturbing dump tackles that we got on the weekend? So just for the sake of my run sheet, let's go in chronological order, shall we? And start at the Gabba on Friday night where the lights went off. Laura Kane, who is the GM of the competition, and Chris Fagan, the Lions coach, was on crunch time. So in our Footy Ops setup, let's start with the Gabba. They're knocking it down, right? And well, they should knock the joint down. No, there's a clear problem at the Gabba regarding the power at the ground, and there's a risk to the light towers. There's a BBL game that was lost not that long ago when the lights went out and couldn't be restored. So the Gabba is outside of our control, but it's a risk. We played a grand final there and got away unscathed. I think we should all just count our lucky stars, right? Are we entirely comfortable with the delay? So the laws of the game say 30 minutes, but the AFL provision is 60 minutes. And as Laura told us on crunch time, that's sort of more the Pirates' guidelines. They can go longer than 60 minutes. There's not a hard cut-off. The AFL is absolutely determined to finish every game. Is there a moment where it compromises the contest in the desire to finish the game?
Oh, probably. I mean, you could mount a case for that. But I like the starting point of let's finish the game. So if there are delays, or there may be multiple delays, who knows? It's a rarity that we have this discussion. But if we can finish the game, I'm a fan of finishing the game. Okay, Melbourne kicked 5 goals. Brisbane just dropped the anchor. So that's on them as much as, all credit to Melbourne. But Brisbane could have warmed up in the rooms. They could have. Yeah, they're whinging about. I don't know what the point is about talking. Oh, they had an unfair advantage. They were out there for 5 minutes, mate. You've won the game. Who cares? Move on. What do you want them fined or something? Why are Brisbane even worried about this? They got the 4 points. Get on with it.
As Tony says, Gerard, can you please ask your meeting? Let's speak to Melbourne being tired and ready to be run over, and then them being given the opportunity to rest for 45 minutes before going again and having the ability to all regroup and change strategy. So there was a profound difference in the course of the last quarter as it was going to run out. It was 40 points and it was going to grow, not diminish. And then Melbourne get the reprieve, come back out. So we just send an email to all clubs reminding them that our absolute priority is going to be to finish games, and we don't care how long it takes.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to manage that. While we have some sympathy for what this does to elite athletes, this is what we're going to do. So get your heads around it.
Does it impact that Gabba's? So the end of the season comes, first block of finals. Do they get an afternoon final instead of a night final just because we can't absolutely be comfortable with the lights?
Now, we played a grand final there, and
No,
that
I
was
know.
after the BBL game had been called off.
So just roll the dice?
Yeah, we just cross our fingers.
Oh, you can't have that in the final, Gerard.
All right, the finish in Perth. DJ from Southbank has sent us a memo to our footy ops meeting.
What's he got?
I'm a sound engineer. I can clearly, so I want to reiterate the word clearly, tell that the arc vision has been doctored.
Oh,
There's a distinct tone change in the middle of the siren indicating dubbing over. So can we just check, did everybody do the doctoring properly? Well done. Good dissemination of information. Are we comfortable with what happened at the end of the Perth game, despite what DJ has sent us?
I love DJ
Yeah.
already. Even if you aren't a sound engineer, to even think this up is my wheelhouse.
Conspiracy theorists at the ready.
So I have no idea. And to be perfectly honest, I don't care. I'm sort of with the umpire. If he's heard that the siren's gone, well, he's heard the siren's gone. He's made 100 decisions through the course of the game, and that's just another one of them. Fremantle had their chance. They had 2 hours to get the job done, couldn't do it. Everyone's just assuming that they knock through and win the game, or they kick a point and get out of there with 2 points. In the end, and we'll get to Fremantle.
We will.
They were their own worst enemies, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to have them saved by one decision.
But the rules were followed and implemented correctly. We're entirely comfortable with that.
But-
Elliot, I want Elliot's idea. So I think Elliot's tabling an idea which has
What's he
absolute merit. Have said it before and we'll say it again. The AFL should make all electronic signage turn red when the siren ends a quarter, similar to the NBA. In a replay, the exact moment can be referenced to know when the siren has blown. So
Oh,
all the electronic signage
no.
around on the fence goes red.
Can you imagine that didn't work? What confidence have you got in that working, Gerard? The only thing we've bought in the last 5 years is the arc, and you've done nothing but blue about that. And the score review that you talk about every week.
I enjoyed the Fremantle player who did go up to the umpire and did the TV signal. He wanted it reviewed. I think there was merit in that. Well done.
Tell you what, I want to get hold of our man DJ from Southbank.
Yeah.
And I want him to educate us on how he can. You've got to do more on this. You can't just leave this meeting and not have addressed the prime concern here.
So I'm at our AFL Ops meeting. I feel like everyone did their job adequately and appropriately, and that finish stands beyond reproach.
Not if it's been doctored.
Not if it's been
If
doctored.
it's been doctored,
Well,
case
then
open again.
We're the only people in the room who would know
Okay.
that. So
All right.
everyone can have
Nothing
their
to say.
conspiracy theories. So those are the first. And the third, so 2 dump tackles, which
Yep.
are just so inherently dangerous. I feel like our MRO did the right thing. 2 weeks for Ryan Burton. So in the normal course of things, I think previously that would have been a week. We're in a heightened environment, so that goes to 1. And absolutely Nathan Broad belongs at the tribunal because he did leave a player with concussion, so it takes it out of the theoretical debate and out of the potential debate and into the real debate. And now we need our tribunal to do the right thing tomorrow night.
So while we're at our footy ops meeting, I'm seriously interested in how many weeks they go for.
Yeah, so in this meeting, we're deciding how many weeks would we ask for? So given that last week we had 3 on the potential to cause injury, our minimum is 4 because the player is concussed.
You're asking for 4.
No, that's hang on.
Sorry.
Our minimum
just doing the
starting point
minutes.
is 4.
Just doing the minutes here, Gerard. Yep.
And then the discussion at our table is, do we want to go higher than that to establish there is a player that has been left with concussion here, and this is our moment to set a new threshold for it.
Those in favour of 4 weeks, raise your hands. Those in favour of 5 weeks.
I think I'd be starting. I'd be happy with 5.
No, I'm not happy with 5. I think it's 6 plus. Oh, this act, right? Can we step through the difference between this and the bump? When you
Yes.
go into the bump, I think most players go in just to make contact. They don't necessarily go to hit the head, and it's part of our game. So too is tackling. But when you grab an arm and you know you've got that player, and often they're light bodies, like Paddy Parnell is a light body.
Yep.
This is happening right across the country. Big kids tackling little kids. All right. That's as soon as you know you're slinging, you have a level of certainty with where the head is because you've got his whole frame in a wrap, including his arm. And when you give the extra sauce at the end and really spin and rip that body with full force, knowing full well their head's hitting the ground. These guys know, Gerard. I won't hear that they don't know and they're unlucky and all this rubbish. They know. It's a deliberate act to inflict maximum damage. So now it is out of your hands. The tribunal needs to influence and impact maximum damage. You've got to take this. We've stuffed up the bump for 3 years, and we're still talking about it. We're still trying to take it out of the game. You can take the sling tackle out of the game this week. You can give 6 weeks and say, if you do this, guys, it's 6. It's not, 2, we'll find grounds to get you down to 1. Oh, it's not severe. It's, look, you didn't quite knock him out, so thanks for not knocking him out. We'll just give you a fine on that one. Thanks for not knocking him out. We'll give you 1 week. No, the act and the action is incredibly dangerous. We don't want kids seeing this. We don't want parents deciding whether they want their kid to play footy because of these acts. I think you stamp it out now or you lose the fight. You lose the fight. And I'm sort of getting a bit tired of losing this fight. And I think it's up to the AFL now to take over. And they've sent it to the tribunal. Great starting point. Chriso, big tick. Well done. Thank you. Now ask for 6 weeks. Don't ask for 4. If they ask for 4, we've lost a fight. Regardless of what the outcome is, we've lost the fight.
Yeah, I still think 4 is a big chunk. But Gerard Healy and I were discussing on Friday night, if the Stuart Prestia incident happened again now, we feel like it would be 6 weeks, not 4. So leave a player with concussion. Let's see what the level is tomorrow night. So a bit of feedback to our Footy Ops meeting. Stuff the boards going red. When the game is over, just shut the lights out like the Gabba. And I'm a sound engineer. Joe, the cameraman, is innocent. That's from Adam. We'll pass that on to our Cricket Australia colleagues. Shall we? For about 20 hours, it felt like the competition was going to have to face up to the reality of no Max Gawn. And not just Melbourne, but all of us.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as it looked at the time when those shots of the forlorn Max Gawn in the rooms just, I think, sent a shudder of dread through every football fan. But now Melbourne has the curiosity. No Gawn for an extended period of time. So not for as long as was feared, but for an extended period of time.
Yeah, and we really don't know how. Look, I'm with you. I'm wrapped that Max is coming back at some point, and when that is, it can't be quick enough. But I'm fascinated to see whether Brodie Grundy is still the ruckman that Melbourne hoped that they were requiring, and the competition sort of endorses. They just randomly endorse. Yeah, he's an Australian level ruckman. But is he still that ruckman? Because I didn't see it on the weekend, and I'm looking for the next few weeks to see whether round 1 was just Max going crazy, and Brodie was 25% ruck. Max was 75% the ruckman. You could have put anyone in there for the other 25%. So it didn't really matter. But if you ever look at the numbers from the weekend since Max went off the ground, minus 26 clearances to Brisbane and minus 9 centre bounces. They got hammered. Forward 50 stoppages, they were awful. 5 goals Brisbane kicked from forward 50 stoppages, 30 points. The AFL average is 9. If you steal 1 goal from the opposition above AFL average, you've done really well.
Yep.
They got 4 more goals. So this is on Brodie now. Big money acquisition. You know, this is to see whether you can do it, because his clearance numbers when he was an All-Australian, he was grabbing the ball out of the ruck and he was dumping it forward. Does he go back to that? So everyone wants to tell me that the clearance is as much about those at ground level as it is the hit out. Well, we find out whether the armchair ride of Max Gawn to Oliver, Viney and Petrarca is exactly that. Or are these guys so good they can cater and cover for a ruckman who's not Max Gawn? I'm fascinated by it. If they can, they'll go up another level in our thoughts of where they sit across the competition, because Gerard Healy always tells me, I'd rather know we're absolutely going to win the tap or absolutely going to lose the tap.
Yes.
The grey area in between doesn't have me moving to win the ball or moving to defend. So I'm just in awe of what Max has been able to do. But let's find out. Has it all been Max all along? and a little bit of Luke Jackson with some freak play in the grand final. These guys are stars underneath at ground level, but they're going to have to be.
Pressure index on the Monday means test, David King squarely resides with Justin Longmuir after losing to St Kilda and North Melbourne in the first 2 weeks of the season.
Well, it's the worst system in the competition, and it has been for a little while. And you can win playing any brand of footy. You can. Home and away games. You can't win finals playing the way they're playing. So I don't understand the point of this. Now, people will say, oh, but they did win a final. I'm talking prelims. We only talk, you and I, about preliminary final round.
Yep.
Does it stand up in preliminary final round? Now, the way they move the ball is too slow, too boring, too calculated, lacks risk, it lacks dare, it lacks trust. They don't absolutely trust that the players can go and play and get it done. So the modern way of the last 12 months has been shown by Chris Scott, endorsed again and gone next level by Craig McRae and Ken Hinkley, that you've got to let the players play. They're going to make mistakes. You can't coach every play. You can't. Nathan Buckley is sitting with us because he tried to coach every play. That's the truth. You can't hunt for perfect football. It's not there. It's not out there. So get that out of your mind and stop trying to control the game. Let the game, if your defence is so good, back them in. Play with some spirit and some freedom and some dare. And then if you turn the ball over, you've got a good defence. You've got Pearce, you've got Cox, you've got Ryan, you've got Young down. You've got these guys that can actually handle the game in live play and coming at them at speed. If you have to protect them that much, then you haven't got the group you think you've got. So there's something wrong with your list composition. I think they've got a very good list. And they've told us they've got a good list because they're at the stage where they've been able to go and afford to buy a player of Luke Jackson's cost. If they didn't think they had the list, there's no way they'd be doing that, because if they did do that, Gerard, and got that wrong, it's 5 more years of pain. You got to know where you're at in footy, and you never really know until you release the brakes. They've got no idea how good they can be right now. No idea. They've spent 6 months telling Nathan Fyfe he's no good as captain and he's not in their midfield anymore because they're putting Will Brodie and they've gone and got Jago O'Meara to come over because they're better versions in the midfield than Nathan Fyfe. Now, I find that hard to understand, that you can go down that path when I look at Craig McRae, who's telling everyone that walks into his office, you're a star. This is what you do for us. You keep doing this. You bite off that kick. You go for that play. Hey, you run. Don't worry. We'll cover you. And we'll get the ball in quick into the forward line. Hey, Dan McStay, come down, play with us. We're going to have a ball, mate. But at Fremantle, they're saying, no, you're 100% a forward now. You're 100% a forward. And listen, let's not bite off the corridor because we can't do that. So let's just chip. I could have shown you 20 edits where they took 40 seconds to a minute to move the ball 40 metres forward. It took them 6 lateral kicks, 4 backwards kicks, and 1 short jab into the corridor to then drive the ball inside 50. A high ball that has low success rate. And you say to your forwards, who are not household names, Matt Taberner, who hasn't done it for years, Fyfe wasn't there on the weekend, but to catch that, to mark that ball, good luck. Luke Jackson be thinking, what the hell am I doing down here? How am I supposed to catch this?
Yep.
Sean Darcy down there. There is no way in the world they could do that. So they've gone inside 50 118 times for 17 goals. Now, that's twice the AFL average. It's poor. 1 in 4 is the normal standard. So that's nowhere near that. They've been beaten by St Kilda and North Melbourne. They're not playing finals, Gerard. They're not playing finals. So what are they learning? What are they doing? That's my query, and people can say what they like. So unless they take the restrictor off this group, they'll never know what they've actually got. What's happened to Sarong and Brayshaw? They get a stack of footy. They've become accumulators and not impactors. That's not how the game's played anymore. So they've moved Nathan Fyfe out because these guys are going to take over the midfield. Well, how's that tracking? They got mauled by Cunnington and Davies on the weekend and Simpkin. They were too tough for them. So they're getting found out everywhere because I think the overarching mindset at Fremantle is, hey, we don't really trust you. And now everyone's been dumbed down to drones. So they're in a world of pain. Everyone's talking about Hawthorn. Don't worry about Hawthorn. Hawthorn have got to acquire some talent. They're going all the way back to come forward. I've got more faith in that than what I've got in the Fremantle model right now.
That's a low bar. That's a low bar. David
Where do you
King,
sit with it?
Monday means test. Oh, no, they're profoundly disappointing. But I'm disturbed by the way Hawthorn have started the season and what that means for the next 21
I shouldn't
games.
probably said that last bit. I lost you on the last bit.
You lost me at goodbye. They got that right. Experienced coaches who know what they're doing from day one use the preseason to its maximum, and then we see the results once the teams start to play. So just give me a pen pick of Ross Lyon, Brad Scott, Alastair Clarkson with their teams at 2-0.
I think Alastair Clarkson had a lot more to work with than the others. It's light on system, but he's united a football club. He's taken the walls down. Everyone who works at the club is part of the team game day. Whether you're in marketing, membership, you're at reception, you feel part of what happens with the selected 23. Ross Lyon, I think, has just taken standards to St Kilda. It's full buy-in. You can run, you're going to run. You're going to defend, you're going to attack. You're going to go up and back until we break them. And there's a real belief and a buy-in now they can beat anyone. And they're undermanned, and they're embracing that.
Yep.
So work rate for them, I think, would be the number one. So success through maybe not being good enough, but absolute effort and work rate, I think, is a real bonus.
Did you hear our snap judgment? They've conceded 12 goals. Our correspondent said 8 from free kicks or 50-metre penalties. He's anticipating a clean sheet. So good. So good.
Well, I wouldn't put it beyond Ross. That's very
Sorry,
good.
Brad
That's
Scott.
hard to compete
Yeah,
with.
that was
I
very
should have
good.
listened to that. That's very good.
And Brad Scott.
Brad Scott, I think standards across the board. I mean, to not be selecting Jake Stringer hits hard at every player at that footy club. And not just today, for next off-season. So the way they return from next off-season will have them in line to have their best year for probably 5 or 6. So I think standards there, and just a clear and concise message of what he needs from every player. There seems to be less junk ball at Essendon at the moment. The fattening of the books is not really happening. Pressure is the number one thing that they're talking about. When the opposition have it, we've got to hunt and we've got to get it back. So that's part of defence. But I just think there's less junk in the Essendon numbers at the minute.
Open question. This is a new category that you've introduced to us for this season, and you've got the open question on Geelong.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering. So Jeremy Cameron, the way he's a golden boot, right? The way he's kicking a goal at the moment. On the weekend, he kicked 6 goals, 1. 4 of those goals were 30% or around about chances. So 1 in 3. And the other 2 were 50-50. And he kicks them all. He kicks 6, he misses 1 where he's tackled in the goal square. That was his highest percentage chance for the day. It was a 70%er, but he got dragged down and it just missed. Okay, so he finishes with 6 goals, 1. They kicked 12 goals. So my concern is he wallpapering over the cracks of the Geelong profile, or is he just, that's what we bought, that's what he is, that's why we got him. And we got 12 goals because we go to him and all those sorts of things. But they're on watch for me, Gerard. They're a long way from where I thought they'd be.
That's the open question. And then the other side of that equation from Thursday night, Carlton, just a bit of PFI. Did they sort a few things out?
Absolutely. Going to the big boys. Go to your trump cards. We keep talking about what makes you strong, what's your identity, who are you? Well, we are going all the time through Charlie Curnow and Harry McKay. And as long as we do that, all the little blokes know where to go. And they're not your household names. They're the worker bees at ground level. Let them do their thing. If you're trying to kick it to them, it's ridiculous. So what they did in round 1 was crazy, but we saw it in round 2, and I think that'll hit home to the troops. Hey, we've got guys that can't be beaten in the forward half. Let's give them a chance to win games for us week on week. They're learning more about themselves than probably any other team that are at the top 5 or 6 team bracket. I'm excited about Carlton. I think you should get excited about Carlton.
Yeah, I am. You learn as you learn. And the oddest part of Thursday night was they could have, for a 3/4 time, they're going to win by 35 points. And it actually served them better to conspire a close game by their own actions for 25 minutes and then sort out the last 3 minutes.
So how did they sort it out? They sorted it out by the big boys. Hey, Charlie, just go behind the ball for 5 minutes. Hey, Harry, Just mark everything for 3 minutes, can you? Yep, no worries, coach. Bang. That's awesome. That's a great lever to be able to pull. You'll need that in the final. You will.
Bit of PFI on the Blues. We have the seedings to go to bring this means
Take it
test
seriously,
to
please.
its close. All right, I'll do it during the ad break. The seedings are just totally provisional after round 2. Our seedings are for Tyre Power's store-wide super sale. Out of 1, it's sort of choose your own poison. So do your own seedings. Don't worry about getting angry about these ones.
Get angry already.
So I've left Brisbane out because I just want to see it again.
Yeah.
So they're one great performance, one terrible performance. Just show me on Thursday night and I'll put you in after that.
Yeah, I've left Brisbane out. I'm really not proud of mine, to be honest.
All right, 4.
The Tigers. I'm a believer in the Tigers. I don't know why. I think that this clearance game is starting to work, and the old boys, the old firm, are still staying strong, Gerard. 4 for me.
I've got Sydney at 4. I reckon just par. What the opportunity they were given, they have absolutely seized. And there was some good stuff yesterday with Amati and McDonald up forward, wasn't there? Just 4, and they'll climb by virtue of what happens next. 3.
3 for me, the Ds. I just think sometimes when you lose your captain to a knee injury 5 minutes into the game, it can really rock the boat emotionally. So I'm just giving him a mulligan for last week.
3, Carlton.
Carlton?
Yeah, I really liked what they did on Thursday night. I think they're about to go on a spree.
Oh, hang on.
I reckon they're going to win their next 5. So they've got 6 out of 8 points.
Oh, this is crazy.
I reckon they're claiming the next 20 points.
Do you know the last time they won 5 in a row? Do you know when it
Sellers was probably playing.
2000.
Right. 2.
Whateley predicts Carlton.
That's
Sydney.
really not for Twitter. That was for our conversation.
No, straight up.
2.
Sydney for me. I want to see them against a good side, but what they're doing at the moment is pretty special.
Melbourne, for me, they just slip out of 1. I think there was probably an emotional toll with what happened with Gawn on the night. Didn't think their midfield could get brutalised in such a way. 1 is the only part that makes sense.
And if they keep doing what they're doing, Collingwood, there will be a little gap again at 2. They're miles in front of the rest.
1 with a moat around them.
Get on now while you can, Gerard.
Collingwood are the number 1 seed after 2 weeks.
They'll be $3 in 3 weeks.